Hello Yu-Gi-Oh players and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0. So this is the Yugituber's guide to Yu-Gi-Oh! Slang and vocabulary. Please remember this is all in good fun, and I do realize that there are differences in how people say things depending on how your meta looks, I suppose, and where you are in the country or what town you live in. You know, there are regional differences, but when you're on Yugitube and you're watching those videos, these are the vocabulary words and their uses that you are most likely to hear. Please enjoy.
Let's get started, shall we? First off, I'm a scrub, so I run 3 Snowman Eater in my main deck. This means that I main, or main deck, 3 Snowman Eater. I do not deck 3 Snowman Eater. Decking is what happens when you punch a person in the face and they hit the deck, meaning they fall on the ground. Also, anything by definition that you run in any part of your deck is then decked. So you main 3 Snowman Eater. On the other hand, this player with the Card Trooper is about to deck out by running out of cards in his deck. He did so by milling 3 cards with Card Trooper's effect, sending them from the top of his deck to the graveyard. If the Card Trooper player then decided to attack the Snowman Eater's effect would activate, popping the Card Trooper. Popping is like you do with a gun. You only kill one thing at a time. This is not called nuking because whoever killed just one person with a nuke? This card nukes. However, if this player does not want his entire board to be destroyed by the nuke, he could then Veiler the Black Rose. Black Rose and TG Hyper Librarian have the same attack points, so if the player with the Black Rose wanted to destroy the TG Hyper Librarian, he could attack into the TG Hyper Librarian, crashing the 2 monsters. This is not called bouncing. However, if this player didn't want his TG Hyper Librarian to be destroyed, then he could always just bounce the Black Rose back to the extra deck with compulsory evacuation device. Lightning Chidori does something very similar to bouncing. It spins cards. That means it takes cards from the field and puts them into the deck. This is very similar, but not to be confused with stacking, which is where you take cards from your hand and put those on top or bottom of your deck. This is what Plague Spreader Zombie does. Neither of these things is called top decking. Oh man, I don't have anything on my field or in my hand. I really hope I draw something that can turn this game around for me. Heart of the Cards! Monster Reborn! Awesome! That's top decking. Then there's Mystical Space Typhoon. Mystical Space Typhoon, better known as MST, pops back row. Back row is any spell or trap card, which by definition you put into the back row of your field, also called your board. I believe the term back row originated because people were really tired of accidentally giving away what they put in their back row. So they're like, I set a spell, or trap, spell or trap, spell or trap. You could be either one. I definitely didn't tell you. You don't know anything. Anyway, once you pop your opponent's back row, clearing their board, you can no fear swing or attack with your Light Pulsar Dragon, which, since your opponent then has their board cleared, they could then use that damage to drop Gores. Dropping a card is when you surprise your opponent with it, which tends to be what happens with Gores. People attack and they don't expect it, and then you drop the Gores on them, put it on the board. If you decide you main too many like Fiendish Chains in order to run Gores, you could always run Tragodia, which you could then drop on your opponent. During your turn, you can activate Tragodia's effect, which does not drop. It pitches a monster from your hand or discards it from your hand to the graveyard in order to take control of that monster your opponent controls with the same level. A lot of people really don't like my Watt deck. Why? Because all it does is poke directly with Cobra. That's when you attack directly with a monster and then search out Watt monsters from your deck, which is just finding a card in your deck and adding it to your hand. And then once you've got your opponent down below 800, you can just overlay for Cowboy and attach to deal 800 points of damage, burning your opponent for game.